It's okay. I was going to start. That's okay. Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm sure it's a little warmer in Honolulu this morning, or will be. There are a couple hours difference, I think. Whatever the case, my name is Ronnie Bogner. You've probably heard most of what I'm going to say before, but what happened, I'll explain a bit. What happened last year, we lost our last Pearl Harbor survivor. Most of you know that, in Lake County. We have two sweethearts, they're known as, which is the widows, only one of which could be here today, and that's Alice sitting right here. In any case, I'll explain her story in a little while. But what happened, we decided because we lost the last survivor, we were not going to do this anymore, and Rich Fiera came to me and said, oh, we got to do this again next year. And I said, no, I said, we're not going to do it again. Oh yeah, we're just going to do the outdoor stuff. So it's an important part to tell because the military funeral honors team, as you see here, they only do funerals except for one thing, and that's this. And it was important for them. We've always thanked them for being here, but apparently they really wanted to be part of this. So that's why we're all here, and I appreciate you all coming because of that. Anyway, we have a kind of a protocol of things to do, and part of it was a call to colors. We had a bugler that would, I don't know if you've ever looked it up, but there's way over 100 calls. I guess 100 years ago, they didn't have speakers and things to tell people what to do, so if you were in the service, you had to know all these calls, and it would tell you when to come to meal, when to come to church, when to do this, when to do that. So we're skipping that because we don't have that bugler. But what we always have done here is had God before country. So the country will be Pledge of Allegiance, but before that, we have Steve over here is going to, actually he has two. You have invocation, and then there's a, he could explain it, but I will. We used to meet once a month, Pearl Harbor survivors, and Walter Ehrman always read the, I don't know, what would you call it, the sailor's prayer?
Yeah.
And he'll read that too, just so that you can get it. It's not very long. And then, in any case, Steve, would you like to start with the God Before Country? Go over here if you like.
Okay.
You can explain who you are if you want, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Explain who you are. I didn't.
Oh, I'm the pastor at the Presbyterian Church in Kelseyville, and I'm honored to be here this morning. And Alice, I'm Alice's pastor, and I don't know if you all know, but Alice is pushing 100.
Next March.
Next March. So. Let us pray. God of our fathers, we guard in our hearts today the sacred memory of those who gave their lives on that day, which will forever live in infamy. Bless us, O Lord, as we remember the shipmates and the friends who served our country so valiantly. Let us not disgrace those who still lie in the quiet places through our indifference or forgetfulness, and rather help us always to remember Pearl Harbor and help us to keep America alert. May we never forget the more than 2,000 sons, fathers, brothers, grandfathers, and friends who were killed, and more than 1,000 citizens of our land were wounded on December 7th, 1941. Their sacrifices were not in vain. They defended America's freedom and demonstrated America's goodness. And heavenly and gracious God, we give thanks for the brave men who embodied your love by making this ultimate sacrifice. You declared, greater love hath no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. May we be willing to follow their example when and if duty calls. We also give thanks for those who survived the attack of our country and who went on with their lives in a way that betrayed honor to a watching world. They carried on with life even as they bore deep within them the haunting memories of what they witnessed, heard, and felt. And while many have passed on, let us not forget them nor their sacrifice. Bless us and them with your continued grace and mercy from your holy hand, and guide us and lead us in all that we do. Let us live to bring glory and honor to you. This we pray in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Now, we will salute the flag, but we have to put the flag up to do so. I always have, don't always, I think most of you have been educated by now. But anyway, Jim Harris was our pretty much patriarch of the Pearl Harbor survivors of Lake County. Matter of fact, it's because of him that this even exists. We don't know, but we think this may be one of the only ones in the country. I don't know. But whatever the case, it was his brother works in, might still, for all I know, work in Hollywood with set designing. And hello, Ray, that's not me calling you. In any case, he designed it and everything, and the Rotary Club of Lakeport put it in. Dave Meek was president at the time. This was his project. I think they dedicated it in 2002, and you'll see there's a plaque over there, and then there's one here in Springs. All the, we'll read names in a while of all the survivors that lived in Lake County. There were a lot of them here because it was a retirement community. About the only place there might be more would be San Diego. But anyway, you'll see the names and the ships all the way around if you take the time. Jim Harris was adamant that he wanted to have all services, not just 4. So we added Coast Guard and Merchant Marine. Merchant Marine actually had 1 gun on the back. So, and they were pretty much a target. But in any case, you'll see flags the same way. And the education part was, Jim Harris was adamant he knew all the protocol of the Navy. He called it my Navy because the Navy's changed. But whatever the case, the American flag, this by the way is considered a ship. We actually commissioned it one time with a pennant that he went out of his way to get. It's a little long, thin. In any case, I don't know what it's called, the USS Lakeport, I guess. But whatever the case, if it's within so many feet of a body of water, then it can be considered a ship. And if it's considered a ship, then the national ensign, he called it, you and I would call it the American flag, goes on a gaff. And if you look on a ship as it's going by, it's not, the flag is not at the top, it's on a gaff. And so that's why this is over here, because people have come up to me and said, oh, no, the flag has to go to the top. Well, any place else it does, but not here. And don't ever call this a flagpole. This is a memorial mast. You'll come back to the grave and get you. In any case, now we're going to 2-block the flag, and for your continuing education, 2-blocking is like if you have a block and tackle, you bring the 2 blocks together. You don't use a block and tackle for flags, but that was the expression. 2-blocking means take it to the very top. So Victor Rico, and Brad Rasmussen, I got the impression he was delegating here to let him do it, but anyway, we'll bring it to the top, then we will salute the flag, and then you will see the rest of the program as it goes on. So you can go ahead and take it to the top. After we salute, then you'll do your thing, right? You can just hold it there instead of tying it off.
Detail, stand up, port arms, present arms.
Okay, hats off. Those in the military or military background can salute, otherwise hands over your heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, please remain standing. They're going to fire first. And by the way, you might want to plug your ears.
Take it off. Ready. Aim.
Oh, Jesus.
Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Present arms. Detail. Port armed. Pull your weapons.
You can be seated. An excellent job. You guys gonna stick around or you gonna leave? It's up to you. In any case, the reason this is left at half staff, I suppose right now is for two reasons, but one of them, Jim Harris, I'll mention him again, wanted to commemorate, by the way, the survivors all said the same thing and said that the heroes are the ones that didn't come home. People called them heroes, and they didn't want to be called that. They were just in a bad place. But it was very important to them to never forget. Now, I've been to Pearl Harbor, and maybe a lot of you have, and I can tell you nobody's going to forget. They spent $58 million on a 2010 they opened it when I was there. I don't think they opened it because I was there. But whatever the case, it's a big commitment, and you can't go to Arizona right now, but I'm sure they're going to fix that. The point of the story is that the names are all on the wall. There was 1,177 on one ship. But those people are to be commemorated, but also Jim wanted to commemorate anybody who has died in combat or while in the service. And that's why we have it half staff. The other one, as I'm sure some of you have watched the funeral services for George H.W. Bush. The reason I bring him up is because he was a Navy guy. And virtually all, we have a list here, we're going to ring the bell for all the people that same names around here, the Lake County people, but only two of them were not Navy. One guy was at Schofield Barracks and one guy was at Hickam Field. And anyway, that's the reason I brought up George H.W. Bush, is because I think Jim was one. I'm sure you're happy with that. In any case, I'd like to mention, by the way, that we happen to have a police chief, sheriff, two supervisors, an ex-supervisor, and I'm probably, Board of Education, is that what you?
County Superintendent.
County Superintendent of Schools, sorry. In any case, we're well represented here. And also I want to thank the guy who brings his Jeep every time. I'm going out of my way to say Jeep, because don't say Willie's Jeep, I was informed. This is a Ford. And he tells me the little things you have to look for to find out that it's a Ford, because they're very minute. But in any case, this is the real thing. If you notice, he puts the flag here in case there's oil drips.
It's a rag.
Yeah, it's a rag.
It is a Ford.
I also want to introduce, and very important to me, we happen to have two World War II, I don't want to call you survivors, we'll call you veterans. Dan and Ray are both here. They happen to be sitting next to each other. I don't know if there's others around, but anyway. Well, three if you count Alice. Alice was a Navy nurse, by the way, at Mare Island. Back when nurses, I think about all you had was a stethoscope and a thermometer, and that was about it in those days. There were no MRIs or even. But in any case, trying to think, there was something else I was going to mention, and I forgot what it was now. My first wife was going to tell me before we go to the bell. No, okay. We have a, oh, by the way, I will mention here, any of you, before you leave, you can look. We used to go in parades when there were a lot of us. I started here and started being associated with the Pearl Harbor survivors in 2002. And we've done a lot of parades and things, and there's pictures of us, and you'll see we had signs with the name of the ship that they were on. And we went in the parade here in town. Maybe many of you have seen us, and then Clear Lake Parade. And obviously now we don't do parades, but Colonel Andy Peterson here has agreed, with much prompting from us, to ring the bell once for each person who used to live in Lake County, who's a survivor who's now passed away, which is virtually all of them. And I never did count them. I think there's 36 or so, but I'll rattle through rather quickly so you don't have to stay here forever. But I've got a list here. You want to get closer? Or you can do it there. Okay. I could read years, but it's okay. I'll just read the beginning and the end years. 1998 was the first one that died, and the last one was December 31st of last year. We all knew Bill Slater. Art man called him Battleship Bill. He was in Pennsylvania, but I'll start. Some of these I might not pronounce correctly, but oh, by the way, I do want to mention something. It was my idea to put the business around here with the names and everything. I wanted to personalize the thing, so somebody can come and say, "Here's my grandfather" or something, right? So, and it's got the name of the ships. Well, Jim Harris did not like the idea. And the reason was because he said, somebody's going to come along later and say, hey, there's one more, da-da-da-da. And I said, well, if that's the case, we'll put it there. But anyway, sure enough, we had them here, and there was a problem. We had to redo it. And this person came up and said, I don't remember what they're really, oh, it was her dad, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, we said, okay, great, we're redoing it, so we stuck his name on here. I can't pronounce it. You've ever heard that expression, I like by a vowel? Wait till you hear this. Anyway, I don't know if she's here today or not, but whatever the case, that was one of the things. But I still like the fact that it's, poor Jim is gone, and so I just overrode his wishes. Okay, we're going to start here. Joe Dedock was Ford Island. Mike DeVito was USS Detroit. By the way, the ships with the name of a city are cruisers. There was heavy cruisers and light cruisers. Heavy cruisers were usually a capital city. Light cruisers were any other city. The name of a state in those days, different now, the name of a state was a battleship. So Dean Darrow was USS West Virginia. I'll stop for a second and say that was Alice's husband. I saw a picture of him in the last year or so, and he was quite a hunk. You had good eyes. And USS West Virginia, by the way, was the only ship that was at the attack that was there on September 2nd, 1945, for the signing of the unconditional surrender. James Chilton, USS California, another battleship. Neil Gilliam, USS Argonne. Oh, here's the name. I told you it's tough to pronounce. Edward, I'm going to say Sedgwick, USS Subbase. Now this name, last name, has 7 letters in it. There's one vowel. I mean, I don't know how you pronounce it. Okay, William Gardner, Navy Yard. Earl Worrell, just like the world we're standing on. Navy Receiving Station. Jack Johnson, USS Phoenix. That would be a heavy cruiser. Ted Howell, USS Case. The ones that have names were named after prominent past, usually dead, usually admirals, and they were all destroyers, so Case would have been one. Okay, Mel Moen was Navy Boat Pool. Richard Deere, USS Pennsylvania. Hugh Glore, USS Tennessee. Ray Van Brocklin, Ford Island. George Johnston was a plank owner. I have to explain, there's only one on here, of the USS Mugford, which was a destroyer, and a plank owner is one of the original crew. And I don't know if you get a badge for it or what you do, but it makes you somebody if you were on the thing originally. Okay, Willie Williams, USS Oglala. Ed Whitler, USS San Francisco. Cliff Merkvicka was USS Dale. Bud Paler was USS St. Louis. Ken Settle, USS Maryland. Now the next two were the ones that were in the Army Air Corps. Okay, Al Talley was Schofield Barracks. He might have been Army actually. Okay, Frank Gregory was Hickam Field. He was Air Corps, and that you've heard me talk about him before. He was the guy that said that we took more hits than any ship and we never sank. Okay, James Muir was USS Vestal. That was a repair ship right next door to the Arizona. Okay, Ray Young was USS Oklahoma. I knew him personally, he never wanted to be part of till the very end, be part of Pearl Harbor survivors because it bothered him so bad. He was transferred the 1st of December You know your dates. This is the 7th. The 1st of the month, he was transferred from below decks to topside. And I don't know how much you know about the ship, but it turned over like 130 degrees, and people were banging on for days, and they couldn't get him out because there's no way you could cut a hole, and all this. And a lot of his friends he lost down there. Gene Humphreys, USS Maryland. Michael Blair, USS Whitney. The Whitney was a destroyer tender. I've seen a picture, and destroyers, you think of a big ship. Well, this is like 10 times bigger. And it would have like 5 or 6 destroyers with it that it would go around, and I don't know if it gave them supplies or ammunition or what it did, but it was a tender to all of those. It was the sister ship to Jim Harris's ship you'll hear about in a moment. John Mullins, U.S. Navy Signal Tower. James McCullough, USS Tennessee. Fred Layton, USS Ramsey. I've told about this before, but I got to personalize it a bit. The guy, Ramsey was a destroyer. It didn't take any hits or anything like that, but right away they sent it up to the Aleutian Islands. It was what he calls an old four-stacker, which is a World War I ship. A lot of them were. And it had no heat. I mean, unless you were down in the shoveling coal or whatever you did. But they went up there with no extra clothing or anything. He says he was froze to death up there because, you know, nobody knew where the Japanese were going to hit again. So, Chuck Bauer, U.S. Subbase. Chuck's wife is the other. Charlotte is the other. I love that. His name is Charles. He married somebody named Charlotte. But in any case, she's under the weather right now, and so she couldn't be here. She's the other sweetheart I mentioned that we have two. He was on the USS Tuna later. Not surprisingly, submarines were named after fish. I don't know what they're named after nowadays, but they were in those days. Okay, Edward Valdez, USS Pennsylvania. Jim Harris, USS Dobbin. That's the guy you keep hearing me talk about. Floyd Eddy, USS Trevor. That was a destroyer. Walter Ehrman, USS Blue. Walter was on the Blue. He said he was the 3rd ship out of the harbor. He was very active, one of the later people that passed, and you'll see there's only a few more. He was down in the, I think it's called Iron Bottom Sound, and he got torpedoed, and it blew away the back end of the whole ship, and right where his bunk was. But obviously he wasn't in the bunk. They tried to tow it, and the next day they gave up and just let it sink. As a matter of fact, I think we torpedoed our own ship on purpose. August 23rd, 42. Okay, Bud Boner, USS Tennessee. We knew him as well, these later guys we knew. He was in turret number 3 on a battleship. There are 1, 2 in front, and 3 and 4 in back. And he was in number 3, and they had a protocol of what you do if you get an attack. And one of the things is you go down in there and close it all off. And he could hear everything going on, and he didn't know. And it was 3:30 that afternoon before they allowed him to come out, because he did what the rule book said. By the way, what was his birthday? 92nd, 90? Well, we had a birthday for him, and he said he'd never in his life ever had a birthday party. And so Alice and I think Walter, whoever, we had a birthday party with the cake. He said he grew up in western Kansas, I think it was. And his dad had died, Depression came, they lost the ranch. It wasn't called a ranch in those days, it was called a farm. The very next year they discovered natural gas in it. Timing is everything. Okay, some of you might have known, he called himself Andy, but Henry Anderson, USS Tennessee. He was a relatively prominent person here in town. Okay, and then I've already mentioned, but I will again, Wilbur, but he called himself Bill Slater, USS Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania only took 1 hit, and it was encasement number something, I don't know. They didn't have, they had turrets, but you can put your arm down, we're done. What? You can put your arm down, we're done.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. I hate to see the poor guy like this. In any case, they have some of you know this story, but that's okay, I'll tell it again real quickly. They have a conveyor belt type thing that goes vertically that would carry the shells up for the gun, whatever size gun they were, 3-inch or whatever they had. And so it broke down. This was a World War I ship also, I think, or maybe 20 or 21 it was built. I think it was World War I. But anyway, so the thing broke down, so they had to go down below decks to carry the ammo up. And there were 26 guys, I think, up there. And he would have been one of them, and the bomb came down and killed them all. And he was down below. And anyway, the next day, a lieutenant came to him and gave him a box with a pair of shoes in it and said, dispose of these. And he took them and then realized the feet were still in them. Now this is a guy that's 17 years old. I mean, I don't know what I would have been like, but I would have been different were I 17 and had something like that happen to me. In any case, are we,
Doug?
what did I leave out?
Doug? God bless America.
I know, but did I leave anything before that?
No.
Okay.
And Alice.
Now, me. Doug Patton's going to help us out here.
Come on out, Doug.
Further? Stand right here. Here, well, I'm going to make an X. Many of you know Doug Patton, Vietnam veteran. You can tell by his hat. In any case, he would like to lead us. We would like him to lead us. We asked him, and he allowed that he would do it. Lead us in God Bless America. I think a few of you have heard the tune.
As he said, lead, I'd like you all please join in and help drown me out.
You don't have to stand. You don't have to stand up. Especially you. Yeah.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Thank you.
Alice wants to.
I will. That was just good. Don't go away. In any case, I'm a little bit. My friend gave me this over here, but I'm wearing this because it's cold. But I wanted to point out, and a lot of you already know, they had an unofficial. By the way, the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association started amongst a bunch of people. I'm sure not one of them had a drink. But they were down in LA and decided, hey, there's a bunch of us, we get together, why don't we start an association? And so they did. And as a matter of fact, you can read on here, I think it even says 1958. And the thing became a worldwide organization. We have chapter 23 was Santa Rosa to the border. The guys got tired, and I think the gals had something to do with it, tired of driving over the hill once a month. And so there were so many of us here, of you here, that they started meeting. And I think you were at El Grande for a while, and there was quite a few of you. I mean, you had like 40, 50 people at one time, didn't you? Yeah, it was a big, with all the wives in the organization, one thing another. In any case, they adopted, so to speak, their official uniform is white pants and your favorite Hawaiian shirt. And, I will mention, Jim Harris always used to wear these, and he gifted them to my wife, which she's proud of. Puka, what they're called? Puka shells. In any case, the uniform is to the point where those who choose can actually be buried in it. And okay, there's a story that many of you heard. Did you want to tell it? You want me to just tell the story?
Go ahead.
Did you
It's
bring
better to have Alice say it, Ronnie.
Wait.
It's better for Alice to say it. It's more.
Okay, Alice is going to give a concise version.
Yeah.
I'll tell part of it to speed through. But anyway, what happened? Her husband. He wasn't a husband at the time, but he wasn't too much after that he was. In any case, he was on the USS West Virginia, as we explained, and I assume it's because a bomb hit somewhere or something, but he got blown off the ship, right? He was in the water. Now, in the water is not a good place to be because you got oil, and some of the oil's on fire. And by the way, Jim Harris at 17 could tell you if he were here, that they were dispatching these little boats to go around and get people out. And Jim Harris would say he would grab somebody and the skin would just come off. And it was, I mean, I keep repeating, 17 years old. But in any case, back to Dean Darrow. I don't think he jumped off. I think he got blown off into the water, right? Okay, and he's trying to swim and one thing and another. And I don't know for sure that we know, but I do know that 7.7 millimeter is the caliber that the airplanes, the Japanese airplanes were using. They also had bigger ones, but they had machine guns on their airplanes, and they were strafing. Now, do you think he was hit in the water or on the ship first?
He was pulling himself into the boat.
Oh, he's pulling himself into the boat.
When they came
along, okay. So he got hit, but I guess, I don't know why they didn't think too much about it. Wait, you can tell that in a second. So what happens, this is a great story you probably heard, but it's great to hear it again. So what happens is they put him on a ship, but they figure he's okay, and he finds out that every time he goes to battle stations, he passes out. And well, you can't have that too well, so they go take him into the, I don't know if he went to the USS Hope or one of those.
Solace.
The Solace. Yeah, exactly, USS Solace. So, which that reminds me of Penny, I'll have to tell in a moment. So, by the way, yeah, I'll rattle that real quick. We do have one other child survivor. A child survivor is what it sounds like, a survivor that was a child at the time. And she couldn't be here for health reasons as well, but there's Penny Lunt lives in Clear Lake Oaks, and she was, I think, 3 years old. And she remembers at that age that they put everybody on ships and ran them back to the mainland, and when they had dirty diapers, they just threw them overboard. But in any case, back to Dean Darrow. So Dean Darrow goes through a bunch of things. They even give him an appendectomy, I think, for I don't know what reason. But it continues to be a problem. And so they send him to Mare Island. And who happens to be a Navy nurse there? So her last name is Beck, by the way, at the time. So she's taking care of him one thing or another. And so the next thing you know, the doctor comes in and says, hey, you got to have an operation or you're going to die or whatever. So it's okay, well, I'm going to do that. So he thinks he might not be waking up again.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I just love to hear your version compared.
Yeah. Well, she's not arguing, you are.
No, yeah.
So I'm trying to go through it a little quicker. So the point of the story is there's a, well, you want to take over the part where he says to you whether or not he's gonna make it?
Well, he said,
Come over here first. Come over, you got to come over here first. Well, people can't hear you down there. Just turn around, that's okay.
All right. Get up over here.
No, point that way.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Thanks,
Oh my
Alex.
goodness, there's that many people here. Well, anyway, I was giving him his medication, and he took a hold of my hand, and he said, Miss Becky, he said, if I ever get over this thing, would you go out on liberty with me? Well, what could I say? Oh, sure, you know. Because nobody thought he was going to make it.
That's the good part.
But anyway, he came through the surgery fine, and while he was in surgery, they appointed me to be a special duty nurse. We didn't have cardiac care units and all those specialties that they have today. So when he was coming out of the anesthesia, he looked up at me and he said, we're going on liberty, aren't we? So anyway, he made a real rapid recovery. And I kept my word. I went with him on liberty. We went to San Francisco, had a great time. And we went quite a few other times. And then 1st of August, we were married. We were married almost 50 years when we had a massive heart attack and passed away. But anyway, he always said the best thing he got out of the Navy was his nurse. And so I always said, well, when they took the bullet out of his heart, incidentally, this was the bullet. Wow. When they took the bullet out of his heart, it left a big cavity there, and I was able to fill that cavity with my love. But we had a good marriage. We almost had 50 years together. and we raised 4 children. In 1991, he had a massive heart attack and passed away. And that's my story, I guess.
Bill Slater always said, when she told the story, there's no way he could top it, which is pretty much true. In any case. There was something that was left out, maybe conveniently. She was an officer. He was an enlisted man. But this many years later, I don't think anybody complains to me. In any case, are we ready to? Oh, you want to give a closing? Oh, you didn't read the.
He's going to do it.
The prayer. This is the prayer that that Walter always read, and I don't know if it's official or not official, but he always read this at our meetings that we had monthly when the Pearl Harbor survivors. By the way, at that time we had. Don't mean to make you stay standing. We had part of the Pearl Harbor survivors was what they call ships and stations. And each person, even people like myself, just a guest, were expected to get up, and you don't have to get up, but you would tell what you were. And of course they would once in a while say, I was on the USS somewhere, we're the ship that won the war, or whatever. They would brag about things. And that's where the one guy would say, I was on the USS Hickam Field, which there wasn't such a ship. And we took more hits and da-da-da. In any case, at one point in this meeting, Walter would read this prayer. I think we opened the meeting with it. So we will close today with it, if you like.
And I'm honored to read it in honor of my dad, who was a Korean War veteran, served in the Navy on the Breckenridge and the Springfield.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Let us pray. Bless us, O Lord, as we gather in thy name in remembrance of our shipmates and comrades who served our country, and to promote the defense of our American ideals and heritage. Guide and direct us in our deliberations, that they may give glory and honor to thee, and be for the good of all humankind. In thy holy name, amen.
And I thank you all for coming. We used to go over and do the rest of the thing in the comfort and warmth, but this concludes our December 7th observance. I told you that, I don't even know if it might have been, no it isn't, but no it's not, but their, how do you want to say, motto was never forget. So I'm pleased that so many of you did show up, even though we don't have actual survivors left. Alice, we thank you for being here for that part.
If anyone would like to go to Woody's at Kelseyville Lumber, the restaurant, we're going to just go over and have breakfast, so if anybody would like to join us. It's non-official.
You're buying.
You're on your own.
You're buying.
Yeah.
Or
No,
my supervisor, Jim Still,
He is
will
gonna
be
buy, yeah.
taking care of us. That's right.
I'm giving a political speech, so you show up.
Yeah.